Gets open for three. Dagger!
The kick, and here it comes. Swing and a miss! And a World Series Game 7 winning Curly W is in the books. Washington Capitals.
You know, FP, doesn't it feel like the curse is back? Like fully all the way back? Like all of the good juju that we had here, like this is like it's not that long ago. Like COVID wasn't that long ago when all this stuff was happening. This all happened before COVID. We're literally back where we started like 6 years ago with the show.
It depends on which team you're talking about, because
I always talk about the football team first. That's my
they're worse. They're worse than where we started 6 years ago.
I mean, Dan is not worse because we haven't moved forward. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, overall you're better because Dan is gone, but roster, you are worse. Product is worse.
I mean,
stadium is older.
We've been doing this now for 15 weeks or 16 weeks in a row. Like, I've run out of things to talk about with this team. And, you know, sure as shit, 15 minutes ago, Jacoby's now going to start. Like, I don't know what we're doing here. This team, how much of the Jets game did you watch? It was a holiday. It was family time. Like, I'll be honest, I kind of pulled a Stevie. Like, I sat down to kind of start the game. And by the middle of the first quarter, I was like, you know what? I got my kids. I got Christmas. I got relatives here. Like I can't do this right now.
I felt bad because I was with the family, but I didn't want to hog the big screen for such a terrible game.
They don't deserve it anyway.
So I brought my MacBook to like watch the game, and it was just sitting on my lap.
I'm just yeah. I mean, it's
and everyone's like, "Are you gonna watch the game the whole time?" And I'm like, "No," but I couldn't look away. Yeah, because of how bad the game was going. I was in disbelief.
I couldn't believe it. I know we were making light of it, right? It's the worst offense versus the best defense, or worst defense versus the worst offense, whatever it was.
Right.
I mean, the Jets looked. I mean, it looked like Aaron Rodgers out there. I mean,
it looked like contenders.
We talk about teams that are like a piece away. Like they are literally the definition of that. Like they,
yes.
With Aaron Rodgers, or literally with 3 more wins, they'd be in the playoff picture. Mm-hmm. And if Aaron was coming back, even with the craziness with the foot and all that other jazz, I wouldn't pick against them because that defense is good. Like
very good.
That's a defense, right?
Yes.
And to see them play inspired football this late in the season,
what is that like?
Yeah, exactly. That was my big takeaway. I was like, these guys have like professional pride. This is not a dead man walking Ron situation. Like they're still playing for something. I mean, I couldn't.
I mean, it was across the NFL that way, where you have the Patriots, who had a better draft pick than us, stick it to the Broncos. They were playing for something, pride for Bill, for whatever, and essentially
Bill's not a loser. loser.
Yeah. And then you have Antonio Pierce with the Raiders, and they just come out and they've been
not a loser.
They've been a completely different team under him, and they're playing hard, and the defense is fighting, and they're upsetting the Chiefs. It's just even with your both of those teams are quote unquote lame duck coaches, right? It's very possible your interim coach isn't coming back next season. It's very possible that Bill is gone. Yet those teams are performing, but with Ron, nothing. Absolute nothing.
I think Antonio's got a shot at that head coach.
He should have a shot.
I actually think Bieniemy might be on their short list of folks to interview for OC. I think his stock
100% Bieniemy is going back to KC.
I know I said it a couple weeks ago. I'm all in on it now. Like it makes perfect sense. We've seen Belichick do it with his coaches over the years, right? These guys would go, whether it was offense or defense. Charlie Weiss would go somewhere, he'd come back. The donkey that went and ruined 2 franchises. I always forget his name.
McDaniels.
Like he went. He went. He came back. Like it's. I think he'll find his way back there. They need a receiver. I mean, we can. The Chiefs are not the Chiefs of old, right? It's also really weird to see Mahomes like trying to be an alpha on the sideline. Like I don't know.
Mahomes, he needs to realize that he doesn't have Tyreek, and that Kelsey is old and kind of on the tail end of his career, and he needs to turn into a he needs to turn into check down Charlie or whatever, and just start going for the easy passes. Start doing a late career Tom Brady move, and until the weapons come back in, until he gets that Randy Moss resurgence that Brady had, he needs to
But
just
they had an
adapt.
option. I mean, they had an option to go get Hopkins in the offseason, right? And they were like,
Yeah.
we don't want to do that, right? The Titans didn't pay that much. My buddy Chad was talking about that at length, right? He's like this guy was out there, and they didn't get, he's going to have 1,000-yard season with nobody throwing him the ball.
Yeah.
It's, you look at the Chiefs as constructed right now. Like, are they scaring anybody going? I mean, besides the the kind of the allure and the reputation of years
No,
gone by,
nobody's
like
getting scared.
they shouldn't be scaring anybody going in, right? I'd be much more afraid of a team like the Browns, which are the Browns look scary good. Joe
Flacco
Flacco,
found the fountain of youth,
yeah,
apparently.
and I really wanted to talk about this. Like last offseason, and I know Razzy's here. I want to get his thoughts on this too. Last offseason, Lamar Jackson was like openly negotiating, and teams were going out of their way, Redskins included, saying, "Oh, we don't want this guy. Like, we're not interested, whatever." But their former quarterback, Flacco, why aren't more GMs being fired for rolling out trash at quarterback when this guy was available the whole time? And like he took a sweetheart deal, and he's turned he's turned Amari Cooper into Megatron. I mean, it's nuts how good he's playing right now.
Nobody was truly in the conversation for Lamar because everybody knew that the Ravens were going to match whatever happened. They just wanted another team to negotiate for them. So to say that all those teams are out there, nobody wanted to talk to Lamar, blah blah blah. I mean, that's
the Commanders went out of their way to say we're not interested, right? And maybe that's
well, they had to, right? But all 31 teams are saying they weren't gonna pursue Lamar because they just knew the Ravens weren't gonna let him go, and they wanted the league to negotiate for them.
I'll give you that one. Maybe Lamar, and it's fair also to say Lamar maybe didn't want to leave Baltimore as well.
Right.
He's got a good thing there. He's got a coach that he trusts. Like, okay, fine. I'll give you that one. Joe Flacco right now, like, and you could say, well, he's older and he's only got he's only played 4 or 5 games, whatever it is. He legitimately is playing better than the vast majority of quarterbacks. I think you put him on pretty much any team, with the exception of maybe the Bills and the Cowboys and a couple others. That team is better with him there.
Well, it's the recipe, right? You have an elite receiver. Say what you want to say about Amari. Talent wise, maybe not numbers or career wise, but talent wise, he is an elite receiver. He has all the qualities you look for in an elite receiver. And then you have a ground and pound run game with Ford and Hunt. And then you have just the most
Kareem is
but I mean he's your RB2 and he doesn't suck as much as other RB2s do. And then
he's serviceable, sure.
Yeah.
Serviceable.
And then you just have the just the most ferocious defense out there. I mean, it's a recipe for success. That it is literally the blueprint of what Ron wanted to do with this team. Of we're gonna have smash mouth running football, and we're gonna have a great defense, and then we're just gonna get in a QB, and he's gonna be the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the formula works. It was just poorly executed here.
Just very plainly here, because our buddy Mooney put a comment here on the screen for those that are listening. He says they broke Sam Howell. Yeah, they all capital and broke all capital, right? This is he went from a promising young guy to Patrick Ramsey literally in front of our eyes. I mean, the confidence is shot. And honestly, they have to be really careful how they handle this, because it could be a Jason Campbell situation where if you don't get this right.
But who has to be careful? Everybody that has to be careful is gone in 3 weeks.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, I want to close this thought out on Flacco, and then I'll pivot back here to Sam. But knowing what you know now, is he not a starter for someone next season based on how he's playing right now? Is he not potentially the starter in Cleveland? And you try to trade Deshaun for whatever you can get?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Cleveland, I would try to find the best way to financially recoup what we did with Watson.
You pay him half his money, and you trade him to the Titans, or you trade him to the Steelers. You trade him somewhere where somebody needs a quarterback.
But if you're any of the other teams, do you really want to take on Watson?
I mean, if he's coming at a 50% discount, yeah. I mean, I don't know how you go back to him when Flacco's playing the way he is. Right?
There's a lot of QB changes. Before we even get into Sam, Sean Payton just said that he's benching Russ like an hour ago.
For who? Who's the backup there?
What's his face?
Stedman? No, that's
Yeah,
is it?
Jarrett Stidham.
I mean that's surprising.
But that's two very expensive free agent quarterbacks. Suddenly,
yeah. I mean, look, as bad as the Commanders are right now, Russell being here would have made it so much worse.
yeah. And and I've said this a handful of times now. As far as quote unquote they broke Sam Howell, yes, we did. But in all due respect, he's a disposable quarterback. He was a 5th-round pick. If you were ever going to break a quarterback,
that's what makes this
you
whole
break a 5th-round pick quarterback.
that's what makes this Ron thing so terrible now, right? Like he's going with Jacoby. Jacoby gives them a better. I mean, they have no business beating the 49ers, right?
Or the Cowboys, yeah,
or the Cowboys, right? Especially because right now it's looking like these last 2 games are going to be meaningful across the league, but really, really meaningful in the NFC as the Eagles keep losing. The 49ers, obviously, that was. I still think the 49ers Ravens was very much a Super Bowl preview.
Yes.
I think I called that game, right? I think I had the Ravens in a shootout. I mean, it didn't turn into that ultimately from the 49ers side, but the league is wide open, right? Like
wide open.
That's why a team, and I'll keep hitting the same drum, a team like the Rams in the NFC and a team like the Browns in the AFC, is it crazy to think that these teams can stay hot and just torch somebody, especially the Rams, considering they would potentially be going to a dome in Atlanta, to a dome in Dallas, maybe at home or in a dome or playing another dome game in Detroit. Nobody wants to see that team. And in the AFC, how do you stop Amari when he's catching everything?
In the AFC, I think everybody is collectively wishing for the same thing, and it's that Joe Flacco goes back into M&T Bank, but with the Browns.
That'd be amazing.
And upsets them. It would just be the most amazing story. The NFL scriptwriters
somebody got
that one out of the park.
Somebody got it right. And with how I don't like the Jacoby playing games down the stretch because I've come full circle on this. FP, I'm firmly now on your side of this equation. You got to keep rolling out Sam, or maybe it was LP's position.
LP, I'm the
you want Jacoby because you want to evaluate the scheme and whatever. I think the scheme is busted. I'll go back to what you said. I think all these guys are gone anyway. I don't think Bieniemy has a chance to coach anywhere next season outside of Kansas City. I think that's where he ends up. You can point to some of the stuff he did early in the season, but for him to be going crazy on the sideline in that Jets game, talking about the first 15 plays are scripted and like, why aren't you guys executing? Hey, pal. Maybe they're bad plays. Like maybe they're the attention.
Well, yeah, and you could see it very clearly against the Jets that
immediately
there is no reason for this offense with this O-line, especially we had like 3 guys out that Sunday, to have long developing wide receiver routes being called.
Unreal.
You're putting Sam in a terrible position. And then when Jacoby came in, those weren't the plays being called. They were much quicker plays.
Well, I felt like they didn't throw the ball more. I mean, they ran the ball more with Jacoby in.
They ran.
Did you find that odd?
See, that's the thing that I want to see. The whole reason I don't want Sam. I think Sam does need a reset. I think him sitting out might help him more than seeing himself struggle against the Cowboys and the Niners, just from a mental aspect.
I don't think he is gonna. I'm out on Sam. I think he's too short. I think his play is too erratic. This is my opinion, and I'm gonna put something out there. I'm looking at the Chargers, who are similarly in a messy situation. You can argue that they got better skill positions out, all across the board. I would try to dangle this top 5, maybe top 3 pick, and trade Sam and the pick for Herbert. That's what I would try to do.
They're not going to let go of Herbert.
What you wouldn't do it for a top 3 pick and Sam Howell? Of course you would.
I don't think so. Herbert, Herbert has proven enough that he can be in the upper echelon of quarterback play, but he's injury prone and bad system and bad coordinators and whatever. But he's proven he can do it. Why would you?
Are you
And
saying
he's
it's
already gotten
0%?
paid. He's already gotten
If it was offered, would you take it?
no.
Would you offer it from the Redskins side?
No, I think if I'm a new GM coming in, I want the pick.
Remember,
I want the pick. I want to put my stamp on things
it
more.
wasn't that long ago when Ron took over here in Commander Town, right? Where he went on this. Do you remember that summer tour, that first offseason, saying we called about every quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
We called about Patrick Mahomes, and everybody was like, that's stupid. Like, why would you do that? And why would you say it out loud? Herbert might be gettable. He might be gettable. Maybe.
I don't think he's gettable. I don't think the Chargers let him go.
Okay, well, frankly, Jacoby won't be back here. So playing Jacoby this.
But is it terrible if you have Sam as your QB too? He's proven at least he's good enough to be a QB two, a Heineke level.
Well, he's Heineke plus. He's come on. He's
That's is that terrible that your 5th round draft pick had a shot to start, didn't do anything, and you're keeping him on his rookie contract as a QB two?
No, spot starter in case of injury come in. No, I'm not opposed to that at all. I think, yeah, that's fine. I mean, Jacoby won't be back. I mean, I think Jacoby will get he'll get money to if he has a choice to make similar money on a team that's competitive, he's going to go there.
I think if you're Cleveland, you try to ride Flacco and bring back Jacoby and get rid of Watson.
Sure. That's a guy I don't want here in DC.
No, God, no.
I'd rather have no quarterback.
Yes.
I'd rather have Jahan play quarterback, right? Or Tressway.
Logan Thomas can go back as quarterback.
Anyone can play quarterback. Like I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But I don't know. I think the Chargers are going to be looking at, again, like, what's to say that the guy that comes in there looks at Justin and says, I think he's on his last year of his rookie deal, I think. Right. So he's got the money coming his way next offseason. Maybe they say, hey, I don't know if he's the guy.
Are you not just a little bit intrigued, excited to see what the team looks like with Jacoby from start to finish?
No, because Jacoby's not the long-term. If they come out and they score 40 points and beat the 49ers, I would attribute it more to the 49ers, taking a week off than Jacoby being amazing. I think you know what you get with Jacoby. I'm not really interested in evaluating EB's scheme anymore because, frankly, I don't think it's very good.
All right. As a fan, are you upset that the Commanders, let's say in theory, come out and they beat the Cowboys and they ruin their playoff seeding entirely?
I would say,
do you sacrifice a couple draft spots to do that?
Yes, because division rival. Yes, I would say yes, but yeah, if the Cowboys are playing for example, I'm gonna throw this.
They're playing for the 1 seed.
If they're playing for the 1 seed, I would love to ruin that. Yes. If they're in and locked, depending on how the cards shake out this week, and they're locked in, no, I don't want to win that game. If it's a meaningless game, this is how I'm going to qualify it. If the Cowboys game is a meaningless game, meaning neither team has any interest or any there's no upside to winning or losing the game either way, right? There's none on the Commander side. But if Dallas is locked into it would be either the 3 seed or the 5 seed or whatever it is, because I think the Lions are going to lock up 2 with a win. If they beat Dallas this week, then it kind of sets up the NFC. It would be locked in. Then no, I don't want to win that game because it only hurts the Commanders to win that game and potentially flip flop, another spot. But there's a scenario where Arizona wins 1. The Bears look like a real team. Justin Fields is a really interesting situation there as well. That team's going to have
that Montez Sweat turnaround for them.
Looking good. I think the stat that you shared still holds true, right? He's one player who leads 2 teams in sacks. So I don't want to hear about Jonathan Allen. I don't want to hear about Deron Payne. I don't want to hear about whoever. Like that's kind of pathetic.
Well, that was another one. Is there was some, I forgot who said
we knew, Epi, but we knew that Montez was the guy.
There was another NFL insider saying that you probably see Jonathan Allen gone this offseason.
Fine.
I'm good with it too.
He's a jag.
I enjoy
having him here, but like if you can get something for him, fine.
Nobody on this team is.
They drafted a whole bunch of other guys from Alabama to play the same position, didn't they?
Yeah.
Did your boy Fedarius? Did he see the field? Has he seen the field?
Maybe.
Has Quan seen the field? What happened to Emmanuel Forbes? Where are these guys? Just wasted picks. Like as much as I don't like Ron the coach, the GM work and the people management is way worse. Way worse.
If you watched that Ravens game, Kyle Hamilton was a game changer. He was right there for us. We traded back. We took Jahan.
Dude on the corner on the Seahawks is incredible too. I'm blanking on the name right now. We saw him earlier this season.
Yeah.
Like you can't draft guys in the top 3 rounds and have them be non-contributors. That's not how the NFL works anymore. You can't.
All the conversations that we can have, from Jacoby versus Howell, who should start, who should sit, to EB's scheme, to the roster, to get Justin Herbert, not get Justin Herbert. It all comes down to who gets brought in as GM. And it's so important this year more than ever before to get the absolute best GM. And there's so many out there. And this is, I mean, come on, this is the first time in 28 years where they come in not under Dan, right? And all the beauty of the NFL is open to us because we don't have to worry about somebody saying no because it's Dan Snyder.
How much do you think that was happening in the past? Like, do you think Ron is here? I think Dan bought his way around that problem in the past. Whether it was
for coaching, maybe for GM, I think
he paid Bruce an arm and a leg. He paid McLuhan.
Bruce had ties, and he came in because of his connections. Nobody else was going to come in.
I will tell you, I am.
And McLuhan was good, but he was also seen. I mean, it's the same thing we saw when he left here, right? He was seen as the NFL drunk exec. Like he had skeletons in his closet, so that's why we could land him. But right now, without Snyder, you can land the best of the best. Everyone that all the other teams are vying for, we're right there.
I want to believe that, but I don't. I still think there's
PTSD. It's the Snyder PTSD.
There's also like you're also, whoever you're hiring in is going to be here for. There's still a tumultuous season, so to speak, ahead of this team with regards to the stadium potentially moving back to DC. The fan base has eroded considerably. Like, this is not
potential name change, potential uniform change.
You're not just stepping in and focused on football here. Like, all of the distractions and the stuff is still here. And on top of that, now you've got an owner who's, executing his process, right? To raise ticket prices, which is further, ostracize a little bit, I think, the fan base. So I don't know if it's that sexy of a position, to be very honest. I think it can be for somebody who's trying to make a name for themselves. And I think that's the way you're going to have to go. I don't think you're going to get an established, known commodity in here without doing what he's had to, historically the franchise has had to do, which is overpay tremendously to get someone in here, right? The last thing you want is to end up like the Carolina Panthers, like legitimately.
I will overpay if it comes from a team with good DNA. If it comes from a team with good DNA, if you're coming from a Ravens organization, or if you're coming from the Niners, or if you're coming from even the Steelers, whatever, the Eagles, I will pay.
All the big names right now are Lions, are coming out of the Lions. They're coming out of Green Bay. They're coming out of the Texans. Like, look at the teams with the hottest assistants right now. They're not traditional powerhouses, right? They're not. And then your guy, Ben Johnson, right? You're all in on Ben. He wants $20 million a season to come coach.
Back and forth on Ben. Back and forth.
I'm out on Ben. He's got a good thing going, and he's also got really good pieces there. I think people just don't pay attention, or they just write it off because it's Detroit. But Goff is not a throwaway quarterback. He's
That's true.
More than serviceable.
Yeah.
They were good enough at running back to let a really talented running back in DeAndre Swift just leave. Yeah. That's how good they were and confident they were in their draft pick in Gibbs.
No, it's a very strong roster.
St. Brown, like, he shouldn't be as good as he is, right? Like,
correct.
It's like he and Terry should be comparable, but they're not, right? And it's because of the quarterback play. So I don't know.
But is it the quarterback play, or is it Ben, right? Because Goff, when he was under McVay,
I think
He
we
was
saw. I
good,
think we saw
but he
flashes of
wasn't.
this with the Lions last season and as well. I
Yeah,
think
but Ben was there last season.
that's true. That's true. I mean, fine. I mean, so by that argument, you put a guy like Flacco behind that line, and it's what's he doing instead, right? I think Flacco.
I mean, that's a great view because when you did have Goff under McVay, who you would 10 out of 10 people would say, yes, I'll take McVay over Ben Johnson when it comes to play calling.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to the Super Bowl, but the caster on Goff was way more ridiculous than his
honestly,
current cast.
what a storyline that would be for the Rams and the Lions to meet, given that the quarterback swap places and both have now had success, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Stafford obviously won the Super Bowl. Then he had there's been a couple down seasons with LA. Goff had one bad season with the Lions. They trusted him. They doubled down. They added more talent. They drafted better. They tightened up the coaching ranks. What a matchup! Like, talk about storylines. Like, I would love to see that.
But do you realize that the insanity that you could have potentially Stafford returned to Detroit,
Yes,
and then Flacco returned to Baltimore? It's amazing.
that's what I want to see, though. That's what I want to
mean,
see.
it would be fantastic football.
Yeah, I understand the 49ers. The 49ers, I believe, are, even with the loss, I think in a rematch with the Ravens, I would still pick the 49ers. I just do. I think they are still the number one team in my mind. They are just way too potent from an offensive
I mean,
I don't
2020 probably hates me, but because I was just frying Purdy the entire time. He's a system QB, and he had a bad game.
You telling me if they couldn't trade for a Herbert or a Flacco or even a Watson, they wouldn't do it?
I still think Kyle kind of has his crush on Kirk, and I think that might still be a thing.
Wouldn't that be something? Right. I mean,
We've seen crazier things.
Purdy went from MVP discussions to Jag really quick, really quick. And
well, if you watch all of his MVP highlight discussions, they're all 2 to 4 yard passes to running backs or Debo coming out
Debo,
and then the plays go for 70 yards. Like it's not really Purdy.
I gotta say, I love watching Debo play.
Oh, he's phenomenal.
Yeah. He's got a little junk in the trunk too, which I can I don't know. I just always notice it.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
He's a big boy, right?
Yeah.
He rumbles and he can do some stuff. Ayuk is I think an underrated. The 49ers, like, do you remember Brennan Lloyd?
Yeah.
Where he played like second fiddle to T.O., I think, for a couple
Mhm.
seasons, and then he was amazing. And then, of course, he ended up on the Commanders and caught, I think, 6 balls in 2 seasons. But they're very complementary pieces there. And McCaffrey is obviously a stud, and that defense is sound. So, they had a letdown with the Ravens game. I think the Ravens are a really, really good team. I would still pick the 49ers to beat them if they were playing again this week. I would pick
if a rematch happens, and that's kind of what we were telling 20, right? Is good coaching. Kyle Shanahan is a good coach. They will take that loss, and then they will use the Commanders as their get-right game. They're going to come in very angry.
Yes.
And it's going to be a get-right game. It's Chase's game back. They're pissed off. They're fighting for position.
Do you really care about Chase?
No, but I think when Chase has any fake form of motivation and he actually decides to play, which he will.
Okay, so he'll get up for this.
He will get up for this game, yes.
All right, okay.
And that'll be their get right game, and then that'll be what catapults them deep into the playoffs. Because Kyle is that type of coach that will do that, right? And it's just like we were talking about on Hard Knocks with McDaniels and the Dolphins. You take kind of accountability and you work through it and you see successful coaching, right? And if McDaniels learned it from someone, it's probably Kyle. You just take that successful right attitude to coaching and you launch yourself deep into the playoffs.
Yeah,
Ron would not do that.
No, forget about Ron. Ron will not. I think he has too much pride to take a defensive consultant or defensive coordinator position. And frankly, he hasn't proven himself to be capable of doing it anymore anyway.
Ron is trying to set the team back 10 to 15 years by ruining our draft picks just to save face and try to finish 500
for his career.
Yes,
he's done.
He doesn't care.
He's not going to.
There's no way he coaches again.
No, I agree with you on that. And frankly, he did something very similar with the Panthers, right? I mean, look, the Panthers are in like the seventh circle of hell with quarterback.
All started with Ron.
They're paying 3 head coaches at the same time. They have a crazy, like, they're the new Redskins. I mean, they have a crazy owner. They have no stability in the organization. They overpaid for a guy like Thielen, who's had a fine season, right? But and DJ Shark, right? They just spent money trying to kind of patch, Miles Sanders, like just spend money, try to get players in here. Didn't work. I mean, take it from the Commanders fans, of old. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Like, there's only so many teams that can legitimately rebuild on the fly, but you have to be stable primarily at quarterback. And the 49ers are the exception to that, right? They are so talented that they're almost quarterback proof, that a guy named Brock Purdy can just come in and run, a vanilla offense, and it just kind of works. So,
right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. The NFL, I mean, the playoffs basically start this week because of all the jockeying for position. It'll be interesting to see how the Bengals close out the season. I don't know if you've been watching them. Jake Browning is an interesting quarterback, FP. Like, 4-year starter. I think there's something to be said about that. He just looks very poised.
Yeah, he's serviceable. He's just being thrust into the starting position, and then to also have all your wide receivers essentially at one time have some sort of ailment or injury to not make them as elite as they should be. Yeah, but I mean, that's a team for the majority of our lives was bottom feeders in the league.
Yeah, I think the term is the kids say poverty franchise.
Poverty franchise, yeah. That's the Gen Z kids.
Fire that into the sun. I don't like that.
I like bottom feeders better, but
yeah, well, it's more. Yeah, it's correct. Tennessee is a weird franchise now. I think we might see Derrick Henry, switch teams here in this offseason.
Retire if he doesn't get the right team.
Why? I could see him in Dallas. He looks like a Dallas guy, right?
Ugh, I would hate that.
I know, me too. But he could, right? I mean, he could.
As long as he doesn't go to Philly, I don't know.
Philly's got their guy. I think Philly will be fine with DeAndre for a while.
Yeah, you always think they have their guy, and then they go out and they get an even better guy, and then throws the entire league in a frenzy. It makes no sense.
I mean, FP, is there one team that you're looking at right now as we get ready for playoffs, and you're just like, I'm enamored with this team? Like, they could lose by 30 and be knocked out of the playoffs, or they could win by 30 and have a deep run. Who's your team?
Buffalo Bills.
Really?
Yeah.
You're back in.
It is a team that nobody knows which team is going to show up, right? You know that Dallas is going to crap out and have an early exit. You know that the Rams are going to probably be a hard to beat team. Same with the Seahawks, but the Bills could truly lose to the 7th seed or whatever matchup they have, or they could wipe the floor with the 1 seed. It's insane. I can't even speak. I don't even.
I'm surprised you went Bills. I thought you were going to go Dolphins, but
no. Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, the Bills could still win the AFC East. That there's still a path to that. Like, it's just that is a season where everybody started this year, right? Even when they played the Commanders and they looked gods amongst men. Mm-hmm. Everybody had huge expectations for the Bills started this season. And then they had a terrible season, right? From expectation standpoint, and they're still hanging around, and they're still a very talented offense, very talented weapons. And I think
leaky, though, defensively, kind of leaky,
but they also have Leonard Fournette, and I think you saw a glimpse of it last week. But I think going deep into the playoffs, he's going to be featured.
Run. Yeah. And especially if they're hosting and it's nasty and it's feet of snow. You don't need 500.
It's going to be a team that I think surprises a lot of people, and they're going to be the ones that bring out that playoff game that everybody talks about, the high buzz playoff game, because it's going to be something so unexpected and wild. That's just what the Bills do right now.
Razzie, I want to get you in on the same question. Is there one team that you're watching, the last couple of hours, and I said it a couple minutes ago, right? Like, the playoffs basically start now. Everyone's kind of jockeying for that position. I'm high on the Rams. I'm enamored with the Browns. Is there one team that you're watching right now that, like I said, they could win by 30, they could lose by 30, they could go for a deep run and surprise some people, beat anybody, or just flame out? Is there one team that you're just watching and you're like, hey, these guys are crazy good if when the stars align?
You know what? Both of you picked the right teams in both conferences. Playoff Lenny, you gave the shout out to Leonard Fournette. Playoff Lenny likes to come out. The Bills are tracking right now to have a first round matchup in Arrowhead. Our wild card weekend, and we saw those teams. Obviously they have a history. They played a big rivalry the last couple of years. We saw them a couple of weeks ago. The Bills were able to close them out. The Chiefs aren't the same Chiefs. I know you guys already talked about this. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties. Again, my mic's a little rusty here.
Blow the cobwebs off, baby.
Yeah. And then the Rams, I mean, nobody thought they'd be here, and they look like one of the most dangerous teams. I saw something earlier today on Twitter, basically comparing the Rams when they played the Ravens versus the Niners when they played the Ravens, and how closely the Rams took them to overtime.
Very, very true.
It was that fluke. It was that punt return. You remember the Ravens took it down to scored in overtime. And then the Niners, we saw what happened on Monday night. Look, I'm not going to take one game as, and make a whole story out of it. But what I would say is the Rams are a dangerous team. And right now they're lining up, the rivalry of Stafford's going to go back to Detroit wild card weekend. That's the way things are lining up right now.
FP wants to see.
I love it. I love it.
All the reunion games. He wants Stafford going back to Detroit. He wants Flacco going back
to
Baltimore.
Set up to be go back to Baltimore too, and that's just going to be just a crazy game because I know you guys touched on this earlier, but Flacco, the resurgence of him being 4 years, in the dumps, the Jets didn't call him this year when they needed a quarterback desperately, and just
Yeah, but the Commanders didn't call him. The Texans.
No, but that's true. He was on the Jets last season.
Mm-hmm.
When Aaron goes down,
yep,
they prefer to roll with Zach. And honestly, I think that's why Robert Saleh probably deserves to lose his job this offseason. That defense is good enough. And if you could say with Flacco on that team, they're a 10-win team with Flacco. Forget about Aaron Rodgers here for a second.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably built very similarly to the Browns. I can't say that word.
They are built, and honestly, we don't know what happened behind the scenes with Flacco and them, and why he didn't come back there. But Saleh, I mean, you brought it up. He deserves another shot. I mean,
why?
That defense has been stout for the last 3 years. He's been a defensive guy. He had an offensive guy come in. He had to change things up when Aaron, but to do a reset with Aaron coming back next year, this roster is built for Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, he got hurt in the first, few plays of the season. You have to run it back. You have to run it back. You can't start fresh. Who are you going to bring in to be a better coach coordinator?
Not Zach Wilson and not the other guy. I'm blanking on his name. Right? Like he had an opportunity to win games this season with a guy that theoretically knew his system. And to FB's point, Flacco was just doing nothing, and he's doing it with Amari Cooper. He couldn't do the same with Garrett Wilson. He's doing it with
there had to be more behind the scenes.
He couldn't do that with Bryce Hall. Like,
you know what? Maybe Flacco didn't answer the call when they called.
That's very possible that Flacco's like, no, I'm done with you.
No, I'm good. Yeah, I didn't want to be there filling in for Aaron Rodgers. The Browns called, similar division foe.
If you're Arizona this offseason, you're not going to throw a ton of money at Joe Flacco and say, hey, come hold down the fort for us for a couple seasons?
Why? They have
Kyler's working.
They're not getting rid of him. They have too much money dedicated to him.
Listen, everybody's got a price. I think we've seen that. Deshaun Watson had between the legal troubles and the contract, he still found his way to Cleveland. In Cleveland now, they shouldn't pay him. Like they look better.
They have to. You got a fully guaranteed. Him and your boy Kirk are the only guys out there who got fully guaranteed contracts.
Yeah,
he's not getting paid whether he plays or not. There's no incentive.
You go superstar for superstar. You swap Russ and Kyler, Arizona and Denver.
I mean, I'm surprised that your boy Peyton is benching Russ. Like, I mean, he's terrible, but
he's not terrible. And it's surprising.
He's averaging like 200 yards a game passing. He stinks.
You know what it is? There's something in his contract. They're trying to risk his arms. They're trying to prevent him from getting hurt. They don't want to pay him money that he's not going to be able to play with next year. So they're preventing him from getting hurt. They're not eliminated, are they? They're not eliminated. They're still in it.
The only team eliminated is Commanders, like as far as I know. Like everybody else is still alive. Except
and the Panthers.
Aren't the Bears still in the graphic too? Aren't the Bears?
The Bears are still in the graphic, and they may win out. I forgot who they're playing this week, but they have 2 winnable games coming up.
Bears have the Falcons.
The Falcons, yeah.
I'm studying.
if
I'm
Falcons-
studying for
Heineke got it done.
Heineke got it done, but
Heineke made that Falcons offense look the best it's looked all season.
yeah, but Desmond Ritter's interesting. Like I take a flyer on Desmond Ritter.
No.
Oh, you guys are crazy.
No. You know, Falcons may be a
watch some
surprise
highlight
sleeper Justin Fields team next season.
Well, Justin Fields, that is a tough position for the Bears to be in, right? Because they have a very high draft pick, and they have
high draft picks.
Yeah, they have to commit one way or the other to Fields. Like,
what would you do?
You're
the first overall pick, and you have probably like 9 or 10, whatever, their own first round pick.
I would
DJ Moore.
I would stick with what I got in Fields because I think he's shown me like the consistency hasn't been there, but he's way better than Trubisky, right? Who's the last guy that they ran out of town there. He has proven that he can win games both at home and on the road. And you get him a receiver. He's got a good one, maybe at a tight end, a running back. The defense is stout. Montez is playing great.
You would trade out of that first round pick.
I think Fields has shown enough to see that any issues that he had was probably more coach centric than player centric.
Yeah,
I think from a talent perspective, he has it all. Everything that you need minus height.
With Trubisky, Trubisky never looked like the guy. He never had those 300-yard passing games. He never had that big arm. Fields, when he runs, especially, he's effortlessly moving around the field, right?
Yeah.
I think that team, and frankly, just look at the body of work this season. The Commanders at the time were playing better defense, right? But his connection with someone like a DJ Moore, he looks. You can win games with Fields. I think you trade out of that pick, you get some additional. If you could swap, if I'm the Bears, I'm looking to swap my high first round this year for someone's high first round next year, right? And basically just punt for one season and say, I'm going to give this Fields experiment one more season. I'm going to hedge and say, I got that pick next year just in case.
You're not going to have an opportunity to get a Caleb Williams or Drake Phoenix.
I
once in a lifetime opportunity.
But
so Razzie, I'm out on the once in a lifetime generational talent nonsense because the coaching and if this is the NBA, I'm with you. Go get Wemby, stink for a year, let him develop, and then take over the league. We saw it with LeBron. The Cavs were he had more of a meaningful impact, if you will, but the Cavs were whatever. And with year 2, year 3, he takes over, right? Coaching matters, especially in the NFL. And it just does, right? You can have teams with poor coaching, a lot of talent and poor coaching go nowhere, and teams with, from a roster perspective, less talent, but extreme very good coaching schematics, and they win games. So Fields has shown me enough that he can throw, he can clearly run. That defense is stout, right? They're going to add, in theory, they would likely be adding a free safety and maybe another linebacker, but that defense is good. They're sound. They're good. You don't need to be a top 5 defense. You need a top 10, top 12 defense. You need to be able to get a stop here and there. And you need a quarterback who doesn't make mistakes. And Fields doesn't make mistakes, right? You can say he doesn't make the right read, but he's not reckless with the ball.
Yeah.
But you're that coach GM combination is just married to Fields, and they're going to ride or die with him.
Yeah, the one before it was married to Trubisky, and then they were all run out of time.
They're gone.
If you stick with Fields and you give him the right weapons, you would essentially repeat what the Cardinals had with Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins.
Would you rather have
Kyler stinks, but remember for the 2 years ago, the Cardinals were the 12-win team, right?
Yep.
They were getting it done under Cliff Kingsbury, and he was just a terrible coach. Right. And then they had a meltdown and everything fell apart and then Kyler got hurt.
They had supreme talent on that team. But yes,
that's what I'm saying. If you use these high draft picks and find a way to bring in that supreme talent, Fields can easily make the Bears a 12-win.
Yeah, but we were talking about Derrick Henry. If he lands on the Chicago Bears and you have
Derrick Henry's done.
He's better. He would be an upgrade at running back on more than half of the teams in the league right now.
Not as what he was, not every day.
Doesn't have to be what he was. He just has to not fumble.
No, I think he still has a lot. I think he just needs a change of scenery.
If he ends up in Dallas, he makes Dallas better. If he ends up in Chicago, he makes Chicago better. If he ends up in Minnesota, he makes Minnesota better, right? I think if I'm Henry, I'm looking at a dome if I can, or somewhere warm to extend my career. I don't want to play in the cold, right? So if he ends up in Tampa Bay, right? Like look at like Tampa Bay has their hands full with Baker. Like why aren't they talking extension for Baker right now?
They're trying to figure out how to see how the season ends.
They're about to. They're about to pay Baker.
Has he
He
not
earned a
earned-
lot of money for himself.
Has he not like it's
Well,
it's
I
funny what
think he
happens
has
when
two
you
more
start-
games. Look, I'm a Baker fan. I think the Tampa Bay, got a discount on what they got him for this past.
Oh
season.
yeah, absolutely.
But
Look at his play.
He still has to finish. I mean, they haven't. The NFC South is still up for grabs. I think they're playing the Saints this weekend.
I mean, just
done enough.
imagine
enough
your
to get a 2 or 3 year extension right now.
just
But
imagine
if he
your
takes them to the playoffs
Cleveland fan base.
and they play Dallas in the wild card and give them real
They beat him. They could
yeah.
potentially beat him. Yeah. FP, you were gonna say something. Go ahead.
I'll say, just imagine if you're Cleveland fan base and you spent so much money on Deshaun Watson and you see Baker doing it and getting it done in Tampa, and you probably cut ties with him too soon, and then you also see Flacco come in and do exactly what Flacco's doing. I mean, if that storyline happened with the Commanders, granted, we would all be fine if we were a 10-win team, but if we had all that money tied up in the wrong guy, I mean, it would
It'd
be
be scary. It'd be scary going forward. 'Cause, I mean, you
the
got-
fan base,
beat
the
Arizona,
DC media would be exploding with hot takes.
yeah, and the funny thing is, Baker was the fans love Baker. He was like that charismatic guy. He was that
Absolutely.
locker room guy. He was
Yeah,
that
but he also
rah-rah
had a
guy.
little bit of the Kelsey brothers oversaturation issue.
Yeah, the State
Yeah,
Farm commercials.
absolutely.
The guy's
Absolutely.
got to get paid. He's got to,
No, but it's funny what happens when you stop over commercializing your offseason and just focus on football. Mike Evans had a phenomenal season, right? I mean, that doesn't happen without Baker. There's no
You want to hear a story I heard about Baker this offseason? The Bucks didn't go get Baker. Baker went to the Bucks like, hey, sign me, let me play, let me compete for the job. He sought them, and they took a shot at, putting him on the roster and competing with, I forgot who their backup is. I think like Kyle Trask or something. And he ended up winning the job, and obviously we see where he is now. But he sought them this offseason with them having a hole at quarterback with Brady retiring.
Yeah, I mean, he still is making some bonehead plays from time to time, but overall, I'm just saying, based on the body of work this season, he's deserved it. He's deserving of an extension.
For sure.
And if you're the Bucks, you're not going out of your way to address quarterback right now. You got to get a receiver. You got to find a running back. You got to find
a new coach.
Potentially got to find a new coach, right? Like you got other stuff to figure out. But it's I don't know.
Both have a little Rivera in him. You don't know if he's alive on the sideline or not.
Rivera. I mean, the end of the season, man. I mean, Joe, do you have a strong opinion one way or the other on Jacoby getting the start for the Commanders?
It doesn't make any sense. But none of these, what you have in Howell. I listened to a bit on the Junkies last week or so when they were talking about where do you think Howell is next year, and I think Howell's going to be back on our roster competing with a new coach, obviously a new system, but he's going to be back on the roster competing for a job. So what sense does Jacoby make? You're trying to get a couple more wins. You're Rivera, and you just want to get a couple more wins under your belt before you ride off into the sunset.
Yep.
But it's not a big deal because it doesn't matter either way. You know what you have in Sam Howell. Sam Howell.
It's also not a big deal.
He showed what he is. He's a mediocre quarterback at best, and Jacoby's the same thing. So, should we be trying to win games right now? No, we should be trying to work on the draft. Our draft.
I mean, when they came back against the Jets, I was in disbelief. I'm like, what are we doing trying to win this game? Like, what's happening here? What's happening here?
We have 2 or 3 quarterbacks at the top of this draft class that we'll talk about all season that could be potential starters here in DC. So it's not
I think they got to make that. I think they got to offer that trade and just see what happens. If you can get Herbert for that,
nobody's putting Herbert on the trading block.
Okay,
the only way Herbert's being traded is if he's going somewhere for like the first overall pick, and the Chargers are able to start fresh with Cam Williams and Drake May.
I think Caleb will be there at 3. Who's going to take him if the Bears pass?
The Bears are going to pass. Either the Bears will pick a quarterback or they'll trade out. No one's going to pick offensive lineman or Marvin Harrison Jr. at the first overall pick. That trade that we saw what the Panthers paid for last year. That
Panthers are
worth so much.
Yeah, that's true.
Someone's going to trade for it. The Patriots will trade up 2 slots just to get the quarterback they want.
Would you be in favor of FP of Antonio Pierce interviewing for the head coaching job here in DC?
Sure. I mean, I interview whoever you want to interview. It comes down to who the GM is that's doing the interview.
You have to do that. You have, and I said this a number of times in our chat, is you have to do the whole. You have to marry the GM and the head coach.
Right.
You have to make it a package deal. You have to bring them in together. They have to be a package deal. Sign them to a 5-year, 6-year deal. I always reference the San Francisco model. Look what San Francisco did. They had
the bigger thing to look at is the debate on if you get. Me and LP have this conversation all the time of do you want an offensive-minded head coach or defensive-minded head coach?
I want someone who's not 60.
So here's the debate, right? Everyone's like, look at the NFL now, look at the NFL now. You want an offensive-minded head coach. But if you look at the playoff teams, there's a couple defensive coaches in there, right? And they're doing it well.
I mean, Dolphins are not a defensive-minded team. The Rams are not a defensive-minded team. The Browns right now are not a defensive-minded team. They are like who are you looking at and saying Harbaugh in Baltimore is one.
Harbaugh, the Seahawks, the Bills.
Well, okay.
I would say the Browns. I mean, even all the in the hunt guys, those are like the Steelers. Who else do you have? There's a lot of they do stink, but the point is
Tomlin might be available this offseason.
Tomlin's
not because he's getting fired.
I'm out.
He's not going to get fired, but it may be time for him to.
No Belichick, no Tomlin. No thank you.
The rest of the conversation of why you would want an offensive-minded coach, the flip of that coin is if you have a defensive-minded coach and he brings in a really good coordinator and he does great, that coordinator's gone, and you're going to have different offensive systems coming in, and it's hard to keep consistency. But if you have like a Kyle Shanahan and you keep losing coordinators, it doesn't change the offense, and it's easier to keep a DC. But I'm looking around the league, and
it's
there's
easier to find a DC, right?
Easier to find one. Yeah,
it's easier to call defense than it is.
And they're less attractive, like good candidate. Like usually, everyone's going after the sexy offensive coordinator.
Who's on which side of the argument? FP? Who's pushing for the offensive sided? Who's pushing that?
LP's pushing offense. LP will always push offense. That's just LP.
But coming from as a Commanders fan, also like it's been documented forever. We've had so many offensive-minded folks from the coaching ranks in DC leave over the past.
Jimmy Vern. Oh, you're talking about this?
I'm talking about
the Shanahan tree.
Oh, you're talking about the Shanahan the floors and the days. Yeah.
Yeah, and add what's his face O'Connell in Minnesota. Ask McDaniels. And FP, I keep forgetting the name of the guy, the Texans guy now.
Slowick.
It's another guy from the Commanders. Once upon a time, the Commanders locker room. So like, you've lost so many of them here.
Slowick may be a potential. I've seen things about him being
nobody that was here is coming back here.
I think you could get McVay.
No. Get McVay. They're about to go deep into the playoffs.
They're going to get a playoff game and they're back into it.
I want McVay and Herbert. Is that possible? That's my 1-2 punch.
Just move to LA.
Sure.
Just move to LA if you want that.
And buy season tickets for 2 franchises.
Just go every Sunday. You'll get one of them.
Me and the robots in the stands because there's no food.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure tickets are more than 45 cents over there, but
listen, I know I said at the jump. I don't think the DC GM position is as sexy as people make it out to be because there's so much off the field stuff here that still has to be handled. Stadium eroding fan base.
But that's also what Harris has to decide if he's going to go what business model he's going to do. Is he going to have president of football operations and then a GM?
Yes.
Or is he going to have a GM with a president under him and then all the other things?
I think he's going to need like a team CEO and then all the other things underneath it. Because I was fascinated when I was reading about the Pontiac Silverdome. The Silverdome was the home of the Lions in Detroit for 24 years. That's it. FedEx has been up right now for 26 seasons. Or it's been in existence for 26. It's been in use for 24. It is legitimately at the end of, aside from the sludge and the poop falling on people and the rain and the obstructed seats. It's a dump. Nobody wants to go there, right? We literally just had the same conversation. Look at like DC. If you rewind, like let's let's rewind the curse here to the late 90s. You get FedEx Field and the MCI Center basically within 2 seasons or 3 seasons of each other. DC was the epicenter of the new venues, the shiny toy, whatever. There's been no infrastructure enhancements outside of those two. Metro still runs raggedy. Like there's like legitimate things that have to be fixed, and like, you know, and they all, I mean, this is where DC government comes in now and has to weigh in. DC potentially is now losing the caps and the whiz. They have to pull out all the stops to get the Redskins back into the district.
I don't think they're going to lose the Capitals and the Wizards. I think something's going to change.
I mean, Stevie was on here last week saying as a guy who's talked to
the DC insider, right?
He's always in your flex. Like, I know these guys, and it's all about legacy.
He took one picture with 10 of the owners. He thinks he knows everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, have you been watching Monumental Sports, Razzie? You've been watching the Jordan Wizards games? They keep showing like these Charlotte. It's crazy. Just turn it on when we're done. If you're middays here in DC, turn on Monumental Sports and watch Jordan, Popeye Jones, Tyrone Nesby, and a bunch of other people.
I can't watch those games.
It's wild, man. It's wild to see what the league looked like. You had 2 scorers on each of those teams and a bunch of guys that played like legitimate defense, and now the league it's the complete opposite. That's why people that are like, oh, the teams now would run circles around the Jordan Bulls. Yeah, they would, because you can't, like, Bill Wellington can't guard the 3-point line like for 40 possessions at it. You can't do it. So I don't know. I could see FP's his eyes are glazing over.
You're talking about the Wizards.
You can't take me from playoff football.
Just like that. Boom, over, finished. All right, we'll get you out on this, FP. Any final thoughts as we look forward here to the final couple weeks of the NFL season? Ovi's pace is way slowed down now.
Way slowed down, but the team is overperforming and
is he going to break the record?
Better than expected. Yeah, he will. He's had slow starts before. Obviously, he was younger, but he'll get there.
Okay. Razzie, welcome back to the show. Any final thoughts?
I was looking at the schedule coming up for this weekend. Football has been all over our schedule with the holidays and everything. The NFL is taking over. I heard they won Christmas. The Monday night game was the most watched Monday night football game in 27 years, second to the Chiefs-Eagles back in week 11. Mm-hmm. But the way they laid out the schedule was miserable for this week. We have one Thursday night game. We have a Saturday night game. And then we have 10 1 o'clock games this Sunday. And then a New Year's Eve game late at night, but Packers Vikings, nobody really cares about that. Not really.
I kind of love it. They're taking a page out of the soccer leagues worldwide playbook, where all the games happen at the same time. So all the seating, like,
but on my I'm gonna have to set up another TV to see.
Oh, you got TVs, you got iPads.
You know, it says something that the NBA let go of the stranglehold they had on Christmas.
Well, I think that's also a factor of Christmas falling on a Sunday.
Yeah. That's the last couple of years the NFL has been able to do that. I heard next year, I think Christmas is on a Wednesday next year, and they're not going to try to compete with they're not going to play games on Tuesday and Wednesday. You can't
risk that product. You can't. It's too valuable. Like you can't have a team playing on 3 days rest versus a team on 11 days. You can't do that. So,
they're gonna maybe try something funky with like bye weeks or something weird this late in the season, but the NFL did win the weekend for sure.
All I know is as crappy as the games have been for the majority of this year, on any given day, somehow, some way, the playoffs are going to turn into maybe some of the best playoffs we've seen.
Playoffs start this week, baby.
No, I'm saying it's going to turn into some of the best playoffs we've seen in a couple of years.
Well, listen, I'm going to try to keep it in my pants here, but your boy's playing for a championship, okay?
I'm cheering for you, Joe. I was tracking.
Closest I've been in 20 seasons.
Is your first championship?
Closest I've been. I've never won the championship. I got to make some big decisions. I spent all my waiver money this morning on
LP's in the championship too. Actually,
if you need me to drop anyone,
I picked up. I'm gonna call my opponent and like beg cash considerations for him to bench players.
I'll drop somebody from my crappy team at midnight. You can pick them up.
Go look at my roster.
The collusion, baby. I love the collusion.
I legitimately have 6 defenses right now on my team one, because I didn't want my opponent to pick up the Rams, but also because I have no idea. I have. Do I start the Dolphins defense against the Ravens, or the Ravens against the Dolphins? Do I start the Rams against the Giants? Do I start the Bears against the Falcons? Like, nobody talk to me tomorrow. Like, I'm just gonna be. I gotta figure.
I'm cheering for you, Joe. I'm cheering for you. This way, our league can retire and we can stop playing fantasy football.
The second I win, it's over, because I'll stop making everybody play. Like,
Yeah.
20 seasons to get this chip and be done.
Yeah.
I had FP reviewing my lineup last Thursday. Like,
we'll have LP can give you the cheat sheet he uses for his lineups. It's been leading him well.
Okay, I'll listen. I'm not above or below anything. I gotta win. That's the bottom line. If I'm here next week and I lost, like, I'm done. It's the end of my NFL fandom. I can't go 21 years doing something and never having won. But
it's called being a Redskins fan.
Yeah, the curse. There we go. That's a perfect way to end the show. Thank you for hanging out with us. The show is DTC, Defeating the Curse, available anywhere you get your podcasts and anywhere you interact on social media. Just type in DTC. You will find us. Thanks for hanging out with us. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year all around to everyone. We will see you again next week. Until then, we are out.